time for the blend.
Come on.
Welcome to the blend.
Welcome to the Blend Talk. Ladies, adjusting your mind, body, spirit. An effort to make you whole. Blend together to heal your soul. Together. Welcome to the Blend Talk.
Yes, it is the Blend Talk. So glad to see you with us again today. Listen, we have been all going through something through this pandemic, haven't we? I know even in my own life, in my marriage, our relationships get challenged. I'm like, do we still like each other? Do we still love each other? We're shut down and I haven't been traveling as much. I know at least 2 or 3 people in my circle who have had meltdowns because their relationships ended. I know people that don't want to go back to their job and work with difficult bosses or difficult coworkers. I know people that have been challenged because they didn't know how to have the patience to deal with their children in the house every day.
Yes.
So
Yeah. So,
today,
Dr. Lisa, Dr. Joel, I agree with you. Relationships have been tested, and there's so many types of relationships that we didn't even think about. Who are we in them, and how do we feel about them? And I think this pandemic really forced all of us to rethink that. Thank you for sharing, Dr. Joel, about you and your husband. And, guess what? If you live with someone, you better start liking them, or else things could get ugly. So a lot of us have had to think about, do we like who we're with? And how do we do that?
Listen, people had to think about, do they like themselves? Because they had to,
Yeah.
right? Because we don't think about relationship with self. People couldn't sit at home and just get quiet with their thoughts and get comfortable with themselves. And that was a great opportunity to do it. We had a year and a half or so to do it, right? But
yeah, you're right, Dr. Lisa, because relationships are paramount in our lives. Personal, intimate, professional. It is the grease that turns the wheels. So today we are going to have 3 magnificent women that are going to talk to us about navigating this relationship issue through the pandemic. We have Judge Maybelline. Many of you know her from Divorce Court and even from the Tyler Perry movies. She's with us. We have Bianca Abrams. Remember, she was with us in an earlier show, and her son was with us, Miguel. She's a psychotherapist, so she's going to talk about how it affects us, mentally and emotionally. And then a very unique perspective, we're going to have Dr. Ebony Utley from Long Beach University here in California. Now, what she does through her business, her ministry, her outreach, is to bring in the Afrocentric Kemetic philosophy of yoga on how to heal families. So I can't wait to see what her perspective is on how we can heal families and relationships during this pandemic.
yeah, because you think about it, right? Everyone, people work if you think about how many people work like hours and hours and hours a day and how little they spend time with their families, people had to get to know each other again. They had to connect. And just imagine, somebody losing their job or, having other emotional or mental problems. Those had to have affected the relationship in a significant way because, if the money's not coming in, that's a big factor for divorce and all kinds of emotional problems, right?
Yes, and divorce and domestic violence and, interpartner violence. And there are just a lot of results of not actually having healthy relationships that people didn't even know they didn't have, just showing up in this season where persons were forced into situations that were stressful and demanding and maybe didn't have all of the cushions that they used to depend on to get through things.
Right, because I think relationships are the buffer that helps us to deal with the challenges of life. And I'm thinking of a woman who I've been counseling. Not only does she have the COVID-19, but she's taking care of 2 young children that are her grandchildren. And she has a son who has mental health issues. So here she's got layers of issues and she's having to do it all by herself. She has no help. And, your heart breaks for people that are dealing with family members that have addictions or there's abuse.
And just think about just grief and illness in general, because that puts a strain on any relationship, taking care of people who are sick or infirmed or having lost someone, because we keep thinking about loss as it relates to COVID, but there was just loss, period, right? And that takes a toll on your relationship. So there were so many things affecting our relationships.
Right. There was one thing that I realized too in the couple situation. I realized that not every couple was on the same page as far as the protocols with the pandemic. So one would want to wear masks, one wouldn't, one would hand sanitize, one wouldn't. I certainly know about a lot of conflicts that were caused because of that.
And then we have to make sure we touch on the singles, right? Because everybody wasn't yoked, right? So how did all the singles handle it safely, right?
And then you think about, what if one partner is really steeped in their faith, and then they can't go to church, and the other partner, like, what's the big deal? So there could be schisms for so many different reasons. No money, no entertainment, no friends, nobody to attend memorial services if you lost a loved one. So everybody was affected differently. We're not all in the same boat.
No distractions, right?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
And that's where people were using things as distractions, even away from their relationships, because they may have known that they weren't necessarily equally yoked or even happy in their relationships, but they use all kinds of other things to kind of pull them away. So they didn't have that, right?
And then think about the children in families, maybe even a child who is an only child, and they used to depend heavily on their classmates for interaction, and then suddenly their parents needed to become their playmates, and the pressure that brings, and just the isolation, and just not being healthy in the way that we were able to interact with each other, and the strain that comes with that.
Yeah, that's a good point, Dr. Karen, because I know one of the ladies that follows us on the Blend Talk, and she's part of my tribe. We watched her grandbaby grow up on Facebook, and she said, my granddaughter has not been able to play with anybody. We haven't been inside for a whole year. So you wonder, how is that going to impact her development?
Right. And so, let's forget them.
Listen, ladies, we know it's getting hot in here. We're talking about relationships, but you know what time it is. It's time for a break. So listen, when we come back from the break, hold on to your hats. Dr. Jewel is going to be interviewing the one and only, the Honorable Judge Maybelline is in the house. Yay! I'm so excited. They're going to begin our conversation about, how the COVID-19 pandemic has impacted relationships and couples, and I hope they go really deep. So I'm so excited. So stay with us, you guys, Blenders. We'll be right back.
I am so honored to introduce someone that's like a sister friend to me. We've been on the road a few times speaking. I'm talking about Judge Maybelline. Now listen, in 1978, she graduated from Whittier Law School here in California, had her own private practice, which focused on criminal justice and family law. She was judge pro tem for the Juvenile Traffic Court and Family Law. Many of you know her from divorce court as the TV judge from 1998 to 2006, but now you can watch her as Justice with Judge Maybelline Monday through Friday. Check your local listings. Judge Maybelline is a lifetime member of the Church of God in Christ. She's divorced, has 4 children, 10 grands, and she's a community leader here in Southern California with her nonprofit organizations. Thank you so much, Judge Maybelline, for being with us today.
Thank you for having me, my friend.
Yes.
I'm gonna say that you are my sister friend.
Oh, thank you for that honor. I just admire so much all that you have been able to accomplish. But, working in family law, doing divorce court, I'm sure you've had a gamut of relationships that you've seen. Even you write about it in your book. But this pandemic is something new. Can you tell us what has emerged in the quality of relationships, or what has come out of it that we really need to talk about and be aware of?
Well, since I'm not actively practicing anymore, I can only talk about it from what I know dealing with my friends and family and other people who have talked to me. But the pandemic, like a lot of things that happen, the holidays and those kinds of things, that get people depressed and sad. And as a result of that, people's nerves are on edge. They're not as patient with each other. But most of all, what I've heard and what I've talked to people about is I am in the house with these people all day. And, America's not used to that. We are never at home. We're married, but we're going separate ways. Not only married, sisters and brothers, people who live together, you're going separate ways. Parents and children, you're going separate ways. You rarely see each other. But the pandemic had us all right under each other 24 hours for those first 3 months when we were on lockdown, and you couldn't go to work and you couldn't go to the store and you couldn't go out the house. Oh my God, it has caused some friction.
Yes.
As I was saying, the divorce rate is up. According to my friend who runs a domestic violence shelter program, domestic violence has increased. There were more women coming into the shelter, women and children, because of the pandemic. Some people were just checking out. Some of the husbands said, I can't take it. People discovered they don't really like each other. People discovered they don't have much in common, that when they're at home together, they don't know what to do. They still don't spend time with each other. One's in the other room, the other is in another room. The children now this is what I could relate to. And I'm so glad that this didn't happen while I had small children, because parents were just literally frustrated, and some were ready to abuse. And some did, in fact, abuse their children because they just couldn't take the noise. And mommy, and the two kids fighting with each other and yelling with each other and complaining about the toys. And, and it just was a lot to deal with. I'm telling you, what lesson we learned is that we really don't know each other. So many of us as family members, we don't know each other as sisters and brothers. We don't know each other as children and mommy and daddy, husband and wives. You got together 10 years ago, 5 years ago, even 2 years ago for some other reason, but that reason is no longer there. You don't even like each other anymore. And we learned that in the pandemic.
Yeah, it's
not much in common. So disconnected, unfortunately.
It's very alarming to think about it. And I think about your book. Tell everyone the name of your book, because I don't want to
Live Deep Before You Leap.
That's right.
Now an audio book as well as in print. So you can get it on Amazon.com, or you can order it in print on my website, JudgeMaybelline.com. But it's Live Deep Before You Leap. And this was a time we realized that we didn't look deep. What do you have in common? Why do I like you? What drew me to you 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago? Sometimes it was still there. For others, that thrill is gone.
Yeah, I love the title of that book. So what would you tell to someone right now that they're like, I'm lonely, I want to be with somebody, and they're taking shortcuts and they're not reading the red flags, and they're not looking before they leap? I'm sure your book has some tips on what we need to do.
I would tell them just what I've told them in the book, Look Deep Before You Leap. For instance, when you're dating someone and you want to spend your money, your budget is $3,000 a month, his budget is $1,000 a month. Are you really compatible, or are you going to fight over expenses and income and spending habits? All of those things become relevant in a relationship. Just toileting habits. When you go to the toilet, it's the man and woman. You used to be by yourself as a woman, right? So you always leave the seat down. When you get with a man, he's going to leave the seat up because he uses the seat up more than he does down. That could become a sticking point. And if it is, you need to know that in advance. I mean, it sounds stupid, But you need to know that in advance. That could cause very serious arguments and disagreement. I'm dating now. I'm dating. You know, for me, the pandemic has been the opposite. It brought me together with someone. And why? Because I wasn't on the road, because I wasn't traveling, because
See?
I was still and I was in one place, and I was able to sit with a person and talk on the telephone for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 hours while we dated over the telephone for 3 months before we saw each other in person. And we talked 3, 4, 5, 6 hours. And my family was concerned about me because I'm always gone. And they're like,
Yes.
Mommy, are you going to be okay? You got to be at home. But they forgot that I love reading. So I don't mind silent time. I had time to read. I had time to write. I finished my book that I had written, but I was able to get it into an audio book during this time when we were in COVID. So, and it also gave me time to reflect on me,
Yes.
to know who I am for real, and if I could stand living with somebody, because I've been by myself for so long. So one of the issues when we visit each other is, he says, you slam those doggone cabinet doors all the time. And I was like, I'm used to slamming.
I love how you keep it real, and I'm so glad you're going to stay with us. So, Glenda, stay with us. We're going to be right back with my co-host and the awesome Judge Maybelline.
Thank you.
So, blenders, if you've been listening, I'm sure some of you got some hope. Here we got a mature woman who's been single for quite a while. God had her sit down from the pandemic. And I say, when you are still, things are revealed. So, thank you for sharing your good news. I celebrate that with you. I am looking at 3 beautiful Black women, married, single, dating. I'm telling you, we got it all here today, and we want to continue our conversation with you.
Judge Maybelline, thank you so much for being with us today, and thanks for sharing those little personal details that I know our audience are appreciating. In your experience working with families and couples, and just looking at what the pandemic did to relationships in your own family and friendship, what would you say is what do you think was the main result of what happened, all the stresses that everybody had to deal with? What do you think was the main issue in relationships that came out and that caused the most damage that you believe?
I think the main issue that came up is that people just really don't know each other, and they were in love, but love can only do so much. You have to like a person. You have to have something in common with a person, and if you don't, then it's not going to last. Because like young men tend to hit on me all the time, and what I say to them is like, so what you have to offer me? They like, I'm gonna make you feel real good. I'm gonna just go lay it on you. You gonna feel so good. I said, okay. And when we get up out of the bed from the feel good experience,
Right.
what we gonna do after that? You like rap, I like jazz. We're not gonna even be able to go to the same places together. You know what I'm saying? You eat junk, I eat healthy.
Come on.
So what are we going to do? You walk in the room constantly with a hat on and turn to the side and all that. Men in my life can't do that. So we get into relationships and we find out the hard way that oftentimes we got into these relationships without really knowing our mate, or without really knowing our partner, and without asking the hard questions. You know what I'm saying? We don't want to ask those questions. What makes you tick? Some people are all about things and other people are about people. I am about the community, and I'm more concerned with what I can do in my life to help others. So I spend a lot of time doing that. The man I'm with, fortunately, is of the same like mind. He's a basketball coach. He volunteers to coach basketball at the high school that he went to because he's community minded as well. If I hook up with somebody who is not community minded, he's going to be upset that I'm spending all my time with these children at Jefferson High School, trying to teach them and mentor them, that I'm spending my money with my nonprofit association and I'm donating a lot of money. People have to have know each other and understand each other. And just like the cooking and stuff, ladies, these days, we don't cook. Most of us don't. I don't. But the pandemic said we got to eat. So being out to eat all the time meant that your expenses went up. So I had to go back into the kitchen and pull out some of that training that mommy had gave me and what I had learned and what I had done when I was raising my children. I quit because it's just me. I don't have children and I live alone. My brother lives with me. My elder brother, I cook when I feel like it. Most of the time I don't feel like it because it's not something that I enjoy doing. Never have. Did it because I had to. When it got to the point the kids are grown, they're gone. I don't have to. I was like, whoo, dishes down, pots and pans down. I'm out of here. But the pandemic, I had to pick it back up. And I started cooking again. Now, I met this man during the pandemic. So now I cook dinner 2 or 3 times a week because of the pandemic. My family said to him when they met him, they said, man, that's not her. That's not real. That is not real. If you expect that to happen when this is over, that's not her. That's not who she really is. She doesn't do that. And I said, they're right. I don't do that. This is because of the pandemic. Don't expect when it's over. We're going out.
That's so good. It is so good. So I'm looking from the single girl perspective.
Yeah.
And of course you were single in the earlier part of the pandemic.
Right.
So when you think about it from that internal perspective, okay, aside from the cooking and the taking the cooking back up, what did you learn most about yourself? Or what were some of the things that you did, like with the self work and the self relationship?
I learned that, which I already knew, that I'm a little bossy. And I already knew that. And I learned that I realized, I didn't know it before, but I'm a little spoiled. I'm number 9 of 10 children. And I'm kind of used to having my way and people catering to me because when I was younger, if one sister didn't give me what I wanted or one brother didn't, I went to the other one. And of course, I learned what all of us know is that we have habits and ways we have formed about the way we do things, the way we like things done, that we have, that's not necessarily the right or wrong way. It's just our habit. And we have to learn to be, tolerant of others who do things differently. And we're not always tolerant of others who do things differently. That's hard. I mean, even down to just washing the dishes. I mean, I wash the glasses first. I wash my dishes by hand. He says, I don't like that. I put mine in the dishwasher. I said, oh, well, I rarely use the dishwasher. Well, I think the dishwasher sanitizes the dishes more. So I put them in the dishwasher. Okay. At your house, you put them in the dishwasher. At my house, I'm going to wash them by hand. So when I go to his house and spend some time with him, we eat, I put the dishes in the dishwasher. But I had to be shown how to use the dishwasher because I don't.
That's interesting.
It's little things like that make the difference. I'm telling you. And that's television. I learned about me. I hate that I had to learn to just sit and be silent. Yes. You can sit for hours and watch TV. I can sit for hours, but I can't sit for hours and watch TV, just watching TV. I got to have conversation. If you're not having conversation with me, then I'm gonna read a book and I'll start reading Instagram and I'll start looking at and I have books on my cell phone. So I'll just start pulling up books and reading, but I can't sit there and just really tune in to the television program. Yeah. And he's like, don't talk to me. You know, shows what he's watching. I don't want to we're gonna sit here without a conversation, without talking for an hour. Girl, that was hard for me to do. It's been hard.
It's so amazing how you bring out all these little nuances that can make or break a relationship. They're
Yes.
non-negotiable. Judge
Mhm.
Maybelline, we've got to close. We want our audience to know how to reach out to you. And we thank you so much for your time today.
Oh, I
Can
appreciate
tell them
you.
how they want to get your books or anything?
Yes, judgemaybelline.com is my website. That's where they can get my book from in print. If they want the audio book, amazon.com.
Okay.
If they want to look at the show, Justice with Judge Maybelline, check your local listings. It's a syndicated show, so you have to check your local listings.
All right. I love
That's
you.
it. Easy to get in touch with me.
Thank you so much,
Oh,
my dear.
Facebook, Instagram, and all that at Judge Maybelline.
All right. Now, let's just stay with us because coming up in the show, we're going to have Dr. Lisa talking with the comedic yoga instructor about how to heal families. That's Dr. Ebony Utley. But right after this break, Dr. Karen McGibbon will be right back with Bianca Abrams, our psychotherapist today, to talk to us about how to deal with relationships during this pandemic. Stay with us.
Welcome back to the Blend Talk. I'm so glad you decided to stay with us. As you should have seen earlier, if you were with us, we were talking about couples and relationships and how the COVID-19 pandemic has affected them. We are now going to have a wonderful discussion with Bianca Abrams, psychotherapist. She's been on our show before. You may remember her. She's the mother of Miguel. He was the cutest ever. And we're going to be talking about all the mental and emotional issues that have come up in this season in relationships. Bianca, thank you so much for coming on our show one more time. We can't have enough of you.
Thank you for having me. As I'm listening to the other callers, I'm thinking, the Blend Talkers must say, you want me to relive that moment of going through a pandemic with my spouse and the people in my house? Like, we're just getting to a point where we're transitioning and trying to get back to some normalcy. So you're asking me to relive that? And so just, want to talk through the health, the emotional, the mental state that we all went through, and not spending a lot of time on discussing the isolation, the loss of a job, the loss of a loved one, or the illness, but really talking about what came about or came through the pandemic, because we all know that stress or conflict arises every day in our life.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
And so stress can be good in the sense that it pushes us to achieve our greatness, right? It challenges us and pushes us to that next level. But it's the consistency, the prolonging of stress that really makes us think about how that is unhealthy, not only for the human mind, but for the human body and the human soul. And so asking ourselves, what were those things that were underlining, or what are those things inside of us that we had to deal with during the pandemic, right? So how do we think about our relationships prior to the pandemic and how they were just kind of intensified because we were all in that same space. So if you think about, everybody had their individual stressors, whether it was work related, whether it was school related, whether it was health related. And when you think about combining that with other people in the household, it's easy to shift that blame. Right. So if I missed a deadline at work, or if I didn't meet the expectations of my coworkers or my supervisor, it was easy to sit back and say, well, had my spouse help me with lunch or help me clean the dishes that day, then maybe I would have had that additional time. And so things just started to pile up on each other. And we take a step back from that and really say, how did this union start? Well, we started as a team, and how do we get through this pandemic as a team? So communicating what our needs are, what are our what are the supports that we need to get through any hurdles that we have, right? And so really being able to sit down and have those conversations with our spouse about validating our feelings and thoughts and communicating so that we all understand what we're dealing with, because we all individually have concerns and they were valid, but coming together collectively to be a team about that. And I think about not only just that, but you think about a ship when it starts to sink, right? What happens? You can get a life jacket and swim, right? You can do nothing, freeze, or you can actually grab a life jacket and maybe grab a raft and pull everybody together. And I think that's what happened in a lot of different relationships and marriages. There were options, but did we have the tools that we need to navigate and make sure that even though the ship was sinking, we could still stay afloat?
Yeah, thank you. So, Bianca, that was a lot, but I do want to hone in on the psychological issues. Do you think that a lot of the persons who you saw acting out in domestic violence or divorces are on the rampant, or other addictions, do you think there were many undiagnosed mental illnesses in families and relationships that maybe the pandemic brought out? I was thinking about that.
Yeah, and we know a lot of mental health issues are triggered by stress. So when everyone is experiencing stress and may not have healthy coping mechanisms or strategies, it brought on those mental health issues, right? And it intensified those issues for us. And then we may not have known the help or what resources were out there or available because everyone was pretty shut down, and they felt like I was, isolated, and I didn't have someone that I could go to, whether it was mental health through video conference. So there were options out there, but if I didn't know that they were in my toolbox or have access to it, because maybe I don't have insurance, maybe I lost my job, so therefore I lost my insurance. So there are a lot of factors into why individuals may have experienced mental health challenges and not really knowing how to address them.
Right. And when I think about the pandemic, I remember the fear, I remember grief. And I found that persons didn't really understand grief, and that it's normal, and that they were going through it. And then there were so many people who are afraid. And then, you tie that in with anxiety and depression, and then people start to understand, oh, there's a psychological reason why this is happening to me. But then maybe some of them waited until there was a crisis, like somebody got beat up or somebody got overdosed on drugs. Did you see a lot of families break up, marriages break up, persons beating up on each other? Is that what you experienced during this time in your practice?
Yeah, I mean, there are all sorts of situations, right? There's not just one set of problems or one set of issues. We dealt with all sorts of issues, and those healthy coping skills really did play into this, right? Some reverted to drinking, right? So that was their way of getting through the day, is that if I could just ease the pain, or if I can settle these thoughts in my mind. And that's a huge part of being resilient, being able to maintain those healthy thoughts in the midst of so much uncertainty.
Oh, yes. Right.
Right.
Resilience.
And
Yes.
not wanting to be a burden on someone else. So if I'm grieving and other family members are grieving and they have their issues, then I don't really have an outlet, or my village doesn't look the same, because I don't want to be a burden on someone else. And so that isolation and that withdrawal really was real for a lot of people,
A lot of
because
people.
their normal way of handling or addressing issues may not have been the first thing that they could draw to, because of so
Right.
many different or complex issues occurring.
Bianco, everything you've said is so valuable. Blenders, I hope you were paying attention, making notes. You know, we have to stop here, unfortunately. But, you know, I have a feeling I'm going to meet up with you again, maybe in this format. How can our blenders reach you on social media?
So blenders can reach me at Wellness Institute of Atlanta. That's my website, and it gives a great detail or holistic approach on how I approach counseling. And then you can also reach me at b.abrams on Instagram. So b.abrams on Instagram, and Wellness Institute of Atlanta.com.
Thank you so much again for being on our show tonight. Blenders, coming up next. Don't go anywhere, because our Dr. Lisa is going to be speaking with Dr. Ebony Utley, who practices Kemetic Yoga. And if you'd like to know what that is, then don't go anywhere. Please stay with us. We will be right back.
Time for the Blend Talk. It's time for the Blend Talk.
Hi, Blenders. Thank you for staying with us. It's been such an amazing show so far. We've had a chance to speak with Judge Maybelline, who's been really helping us understand those personal pieces of our relationships that we've been dealing with over the COVID pandemic. And we got a chance to speak with Bianca Abrams, who really helped us get into more of the mental, emotional aspects of our challenges with relationships, couples, therapists, all that kind of good stuff. But right now we have a special surprise for you, because we're getting ready to help you understand a little bit more about Kemetic yoga and breathing, and how we can use yoga and breathing to help heal and transform relationships. So today with us, we have Dr. Ebony Utley. She's the professor of communication studies at Cal State in Long Beach, California. She's the owner of Ebony Yoga, where she helps to curate transformative experiences and utilizes Kemetic yoga to actually support in releasing traumatic experiences from your body and help facilitate emotional healing. This is good stuff. So welcome, Dr. Ebony. Can I call you Dr. Ebony?
Of course you can.
All right. So thank you so much for sharing your gift with us and telling us all about what you do and helping the blenders to use and learn about using yoga to help them transform their relationships. But first, tell us a little bit about what Kemetic yoga is and how it's different from other forms of yoga that most people might know about.
It's a great place to start. So Kemetic yoga is ancient Egyptian yoga. So Kemet used to be the term for ancient Egypt. Kemetic yoga is one of the oldest forms of yoga, and it informs most of the Western practices that you might be familiar with.
Okay.
So the hieroglyphs in the holy temples and the pyramids are actually yoga poses designed to channel our spiritual energy, designed to connect us with the divine, designed to connect us with the gods and goddesses that represented nature and natural form. So Kemetic yoga, I like to say, takes us back to our roots, particularly our African roots. And physically, the things that distinguish it from other types of yoga are two things. One is the rule of 4 breathing. The breath that we do occurs in 4 parts. And the other thing is geometric progression. We believe the body is sacred geometry. There are lots of lines and angles in Kemetic yoga, lots of pyramids, because pyramids are portals of power. And we learn to channel our energy through those pyramids as we do the practice.
Yes, portals of power. This is really helping people to understand how to use their body for the gift that has been given. You know, as powerful beings, we don't connect with this. And so it's so nice to be bringing this ancient art and this ancient practice back to the future, right? And to the present, and really helping people use it for relationships. So tell me a little bit about how you can use Kemetic yoga, and as it will help to transform and really I'm interested in the traumatic experiences. Like, how can we help that to transform and help relationships?
Well, like you were saying earlier, in order to have healthy relationships, you have to be good with yourself first.
Yes.
And Kemetic yoga really helps you become intimate with yourself. So I say there are 3 ways to answer that question. So the first thing that Kemetic yoga does is it teaches you mindfulness about your body. The first thing I noticed when I started practicing yoga, I was holding my breath all the time. And I never learned how to breathe properly. All of my breath was happening right here, which was increasing the tension in my shoulders and my back and my neck. And once I learned how to breathe, then I could recognize places in my body that were sore and restoring tension. So 1, it gives me mindfulness about my body. 2, it gives me mindfulness about my thoughts. Kemetic yoga is a slow and a mindful practice. So when you're doing Kemetic yoga, you have to become aware of what you're thinking all the time. I call her the bossy lady in my brain that's always criticizing me when I'm doing my best, right? Kemetic yoga helps me recognize that she's not me and that I can turn her off. It helps me recognize whether my anxieties are rooted in the past or rooted in the future, and I bring myself back to the present to get rid of them, right? Kemetic yoga is able to help me recognize what I'm ruminating on, what thoughts are recurring, and whether those thoughts are serving me or not. And then number 3, Kemetic yoga makes you mindful about your energy, how your energy is flowing. I can feel my energy field after doing certain Kemetic yoga practices. I can strengthen my spiritual connections and get spiritual energies by doing the practice. So it makes me mindful about all of those things. And so once you've got that in your repertoire, you're mindful of your body, you're mindful of your mind, you're mindful of your energy, then you can have healthy interactions with other people, especially your family.
Look at that. Mind, body, spirit. That's exactly what we're talking about here at the Blend Talk. So this is amazing, amazing. And here's the thing. You know, some people would think, you know, going from communications and teaching communications and then teaching yoga, that the two of those don't mix. How would you say that they mix and have been created a nice path for you to do the business that you're doing?
So I teach a lot of interpersonal communication and I teach a lot of family communication. So the classes I'll teach are all about relationships, and we always start with the self, right? Yes. We always start with the self. We start with self-esteem. We think about our perceptions of ourselves, and then we talk about our relationships with other people, right? How do we perceive other people? How accurate are our perceptions of other people? What stereotypes do we bring into our relationships? We talk about regulating our emotions and the best way to do that. So I get to bring my yoga practice to my students in the classroom. We even did yoga on Zoom this semester so that we could practice moving and breathing. So all of that, I tell my students, I don't really teach you anything new. I just teach you how to be better people, how to be healthier people in your relationships. And yoga is just another tool. The breath work is another tool that we're putting in the toolbox to help us do that.
Breath work, I tell you, it's been so powerful. And I bet you've been able to really support people during COVID, because if we're talking about breath and challenges with breathing, this is just so powerful. So would you grace us with a brief session, a breathing session, to show all the blenders how you do it and help them to start their process?
Absolutely. All right, so do this with me at home.
Okay.
Right hand in front of the body. We call these Kemetic palms, with all 4 fingers touching, thumb on top. Left hand comes on top of the right. The pads of the thumbs touch to form a mini pyramid. So remember, this pyramid is your portal of power. So you're bringing it down to your lower abdomen so that the pyramid part is basically framing your belly button. Bring your shoulders down out of your ears. Tuck your chin just slightly so the back of your neck is long, and imagine there's a string that's pulling you up from the top of your head to the sky. So whether you're standing or whether you're sitting, make sure your spine is long and that you're rooted. And then when you're ready, inhale, expand your belly into your hands as you inhale. Pause at the top of the breath, and then exhale out through the mouth and bring your belly button to your spine. Pause at the bottom. Remember, that's rule of 4. So inhale, expand the belly button. Pause, and exhale, contract. Pause. Now keep breathing, and I'll give you a few more cues. Every time we breathe, we're bringing the energy up through the spine. And I like to say we should think about it circulating around our third eye to increase our intuition, and then bringing that energy back down. So when you're forming your pyramid, the base of the pyramid in your lower abdomen is where the breath starts on an inhale. And then you bring it up to the top of the pyramid, not just in your fingers, but the top of your head and your third eye. Then take the energy from the heavens and bring it back down to the bottom of your pyramid as you exhale and pull the belly button to your spine. Now, the best part about rule of 4 breathing is that it's accessible to you at any time. If I get stressed in a grocery store with my student, I'm going to take a few seconds, check out, inhale, pause, and exhale.
Oh, this is great. It's another form of breathing exercise that I had no idea existed. This is so amazing. Do you do these kinds of classes online? And how can our blenders find you? Where on social media can they reach out to you to learn more?
Yes, so on Instagram, I'm at Ebony with a Y, .yoga. On Facebook and the web, I'm The Ebony Yoga, so theebonyyoga.com.
Oh my gosh, this is great. Blenders, could you imagine? This is an ancient Egyptian art, bringing it back to the present. We really need to remember. That's the key. Going back to self, who we truly are. So thank you, Dr. Ebony, for bringing this ancient art back to life. And blenders, if you want to learn more about Dr. Ebony's Kemetic yoga work, please reach out to her on social media. And if you want more information, don't forget, you can always go to the blendtalk.com and we will be right back. I am so excited. I'm going to try this during the break. So see you guys in a little bit.
Thank you so much for staying with us. We really appreciate you for sharing and subscribing and taking notes. We're all in this together. We want to just grow your mind. You know, when I think about the clients that I deal with during the pandemic and before the pandemic, when they're dealing with an issue of rape or unemployment or divorce or cancer, people deal with things differently. And I tell them there's three things. First, there's the event. And then it's how did you experience it? And then number 3, what were the effects of it? So the effect of the pandemic, everybody has experienced it. But we've experienced it different ways, and then it has different effects on us. So we want to realize that we've got to be sensitive to others and realize that some are having a harder time than others. I think about, people that I know that are going through some difficult breakups. I think about people that lost their businesses. I think about people, that miss being with their grandchildren or their brothers and sisters because of the pandemic. I mean, relationships have been torn. And that is what, remember the song, People Who Need People Are the Luckiest People in the World.
Oh, yes.
A car doesn't need gas, doesn't want gas. It needs gas to run. So it's not like we just want to be in a relationship. We need relationships to get through life. We need to get through life.
I really appreciate the reminder today about the value. It's like the foundation piece of life and the quality of life that we hope to have. It's based on what types of relationships we have. But I've been reflecting on the season as well. And I like the word holistic. When we think of body, soul, spirit, I think holistic. And when I think of this season, I think holistic. We've been talking about the pandemic and how it has affected people in a myriad of ways that many persons, including myself, may not have ever thought of. And I have to say how much I appreciate learning from you, my lovely co-hosts who are so brilliant and who have brought your expertise to all that we've been doing in this season. So thank you.
This is such amazing. I mean, like this season, I really think this show encapsulated our season. Because when you think about all the things that people have been going through, and we know relationship is the red thread throughout it all, but just think about, we just went through just this most ancient art of breathing that took us back to who we are, to the beginning, and then we come here to the present, where COVID is ravaging everyone's breath, taking the breath. And we just learned how to breathe in life, because breath is life, right? So when we think about all the things that have been happening, especially as we've been locked up, locked down, all the I can't breathe, movements, all the challenges where people have been killed and asphyxiated, it just really touches me in a way that I can't explain, because we are teaching, we're supporting, we're building, we're helping to take this message of mind, body, spirit to the world. And what better could we have done than to focus on breath? So I just think it just touched me in a little different way today. A little different way.
It's so important, because even though we may be I feel like we've gone through a twilight zone, watching people with masks and all your favorite places closed, and people unemployed, and people on the streets with mental health issues and homeless. And I was trying to arrange for a birthday for someone, and they said, no, the restaurant's closed. Those little reminders that things have changed.
Yeah.
If we don't guard our mind and our health and our spirit, we could really find ourselves in trouble. So I'm glad that we've been touching on things from a holistic point of view, because we may not really know the effects of this event and how we experience it until years from now. We may not really understand it, but we're going to continue having these conversations, which is so awesome that we're going to have an episode 3. I mean, not an episode, but a season 3.
Yeah. No, can you believe that? Like what we'll be able to offer. I mean, because I think this was just the most phenomenal season, and we were able to do it in a way that touched so many people and touched so many different aspects of our lives. And we've had breathing and we talked about acupuncture and all these kind of amazing things. But remember, the last episode when Jeanette Bayardelle talked about that God I'm tired video. Ooh, right? So here we go with supporting and shifting the consciousness, helping people move to another level, even while we're locked down. And that's the power of media. That's the power of the Blend Talk. That's what we're bringing to the world when other forms of media just aren't. I had to say it. They're just not.
Well, we're bringing hope, and I love that word. I love to know that we have been talking about pain and trauma and fear and grief, but we've also been talking about hope and resilience, and people who have. Jeanette is an example, who have risen above the circumstances that she faced, and so can we. I'm so grateful for the examples that our guest experts brought to us of this is how you overcome difficulties. And even though we were talking about the pandemic, the difficulties that we will face in the future, everything we've learned, we can apply to everything that we see in the future.
And we are going to do it in season 3, right? That's what we're bringing.
That's what I'm talking about.
Excited about it.
I even think about the fact that we're an example of what it is to pivot. As much as we'd like to be in a studio, we pivoted. It's like, we're going to get the message out, and we're doing it. So everybody, I know that maybe you're like, oh, I got to breathe through this. I want you to take that time to breathe through this. And I want you to continue staying with us. Don't go anywhere. We got much more coming up.
It's time for the Blend Talk.
Welcome back, Blenders. Thank you so much for staying with us. What a show. It has been full of so much richness. We talked about relationships today, and I'd love to leave you with a little treat that will help you. I know the season is ended, but this will help you to keep going until we meet again. It's called guided imagery. We use it in the mental health profession, but it's really easy. It just requires you to have an imagination and a memory. So if you would join me, close your eyes, and since we're talking about relationships today, think back to a time when you were around people who you love, people who you relate to, whether they're family or friends, and you enjoy them. Think back to a time when you were enjoying a wonderful experience together. Think about how you were feeling when you were with them. Were you laughing? Was it fun? Who was there? How did you feel? Who did you see? What were you smelling? What were you tasting? Were you eating some yummy food? Was it a wonderful memory for you? This can happen anywhere you want. You can do this anywhere you want, for as long as you want. We're going to go back to the studio now. So open your eyes and think about what that felt like. I know it was too short, but can I tell you, you can do what I just demonstrated anywhere for as long as you want. And research has proven that that simple exercise not only can reduce your stress and your blood pressure, but it can make you happier. You are welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Karen, for that demonstration. As we begin to close, we want to remember that worldwide, we lost over 4 million souls. And here in the U.S., we lost over 600,000 souls. We want to pay homage to those souls and send our condolences and compassion to the families that are mourning these tragic losses. We want to say thank you and acknowledge the essential workers, the first responders, those that went out in the streets and served the marginalized people. We want to thank all of our guests that we've had this season. It's been a rich season. And we are so grateful that today, as we focused on relationships during the pandemic, that we have the amazing, honorable Judge Maybelline. Thank you so much, Judge Maybelline, for taking time to be with us. We celebrate you. We also celebrate Bianca Abrams, our psychotherapist today. We love you. We appreciate you. We're sure you're going to come back, but we thank you for giving your insights. We want to thank Dr. Ebony Utley for ushering in this idea that we need to honor our ancient history. We need to be inclusive and holistic. We thank them for everything that they brought to the program today. I'm sure you took notes. We want to make sure that you subscribe, that you share, and you visit us throughout the summer, because we will be reposting and encore shows will be on theblendtalk.com. Go to theblendtalk.com, watch all the previous episodes, and know that we will be back with season 3. We appreciate you and we need your support. Leave us your comments. Let us know what you think about it. What would you like us to talk about? Well, I am Jewel Diamond Taylor, and I'm known as the Self-Esteem Doctor, and I've been with you all throughout the season, and I represent the spirit. Don't give up. Trust God in all things.
And I am Dr. Karen McGibbon, and it's been my joy to share this time with you. And I represent the mind.
And I'm Dr. Lisa Lewis, and I cannot wait for season 3. And I represent the body.
And together, we represent the Blend Talk. Thank you so much. We'll look forward to seeing you again. It's nothing but the grace of God that has kept us all this season. We thank you, God. We thank you, Creator. We thank you, the Most High, for keeping us and blessing all of our blenders. Remember, stay in the light.
Ladies, adjust your mind, body, and spirit. Effort to make you whole. Coming together to heal your soul. Come to the Blend Talk. Ladies, adjust your mind, body, and spirit.